What's going on, Dragons? Happy Wednesday! I'm your co-host Corey, and welcome to episode 40 of the ErCast, our weekly conversation about all things Magic the Gathering. With me in the Dragon's Den today, as always, is our beloved co-host Cole. Cole, how's this week in Magic been treating you?
It's been treating me well, Corey. We're actually planning on heading to an LGS this week, so gonna get some good games in. I'm hyped for the future. I already feel like I'm gonna lose all of the games we play, but I just love playing Magic, so let's throw it down.
Is this going to be your first LGS in California since you've been out there?
This will be our, so we've gone into a couple of LGSs, but the commander scene is middling to say the least, and so we've been a little
Hmm.
bit busy, but we're making it on their commander night, even though it is a little bit of a drive out from us. So we're gonna see if it's worth it for the remainder of our stay.
Okay. And this does it have a quirky name? Like sometimes I really enjoy LGSs because they come up with like either the worst pun imaginable or some kind of D&D quest item style business name.
Well, so I mean, if I say this name, it's basically free advertisement, and if they
Oh,
if they accept it,
okay.
then that means that they owe me cards. And so I will tell you, they do have a good name. Do you think I should say it?
Is it Cool Stuff Inc? Not a
No,
sponsor, but
no,
it's not it's not a chain.
I don't believe it's a chain. It's called Gordon's Good Games. It's triple G.
Okay. Okay. Everybody loves Gordon, I guess.
Yeah, I asked the guy there, hey, are you Gordon? And he said no, he was not. So.
Gordon took the day off, huh?
He actually said he doesn't think Gordon is with the company anymore, but they've kept the name.
Oh, well, Gordon, wherever you are, I hope you sold your business at a quality rate and you're enjoying retirement, maybe?
Or I hope you're resting well, good friend.
Say or you're drafting with the stars.
Right, right.
Okay, well, that's a unique twist. Speaking of unique twists, we're doing it on a Wednesday, I guess. So, we're doing a little differently this week.
Whoa.
I'm back from Gen Con. I'm officially in the state of Florida once again.
So
It's hot,
chronologically,
sweaty.
hold on. Chronologically, the next episode we're gonna say something about Gen Con not having had happened, and that's
Yeah,
okay. But don't worry about it. That's a time travel mishap, never to be
yeah,
spoken about again.
from the power of the editing bay, it may not happen, but I'm probably gonna leave it in. So yes, the next episode we did pre-record pre-Gen Con, thinking it was gonna come out during Gen Con, and then I just got swept away in the magic of Gen Con. So I guess here we are.
Well, now for
So
continuity's sake, yeah, we have to.
yeah, that's what we're all about is the sacred timeline of the Urcast pod. So episode 40, we've shattered the sacred timeline. I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a Disney Plus special about this where Tom Hiddleston comes and just scoops us up, and who knows where we go from there.
Enter the Urcast verse.
It's the only way it can end, apparently. So yeah, so you're gonna get a Wednesday episode, which is this episode right now, and then a Friday episode. So you're gonna like a 2-for-1 this week. Also, maybe it's a slight experiment on what you guys enjoy. Maybe you enjoy Wednesday more. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But this week we are going to be doing something a little special, which is we are going to be looking at 2024 at the halfway mark, and we're going to be telling you what are the top commanders so far in a variety of categories. So we've picked categories from everything such as what do we feel is the most fun commander? What do we feel is the most competitive commander? What do we feel is the most bang for your buck if you want to buy a precon? So we've got a couple different categories, and we did this episode last year. It was pretty popular. A lot of people asked for it to come back again this year. So here we are, settling in. We're going to be talking commanders, who you should build, who you should avoid, all that good stuff.
Well, and there's a critical note here that because of the timeline and continuity's sake, uh, we are not considering any, and well, and also because it's the halfway point, and so theoretically,
Hmm.
if we were to include Bloomborough, we would be doing a misjustice to everything that came in the earlier half of the year. At the end of the year, we'll discuss Bloomborough, so keep your furry opinions to yourselves us, and we haven't forgotten about them. We're not going to be talking about them in this episode.
I am going to venture on a limb though and say, based off of how excited I am with Bloomborough so far and how much I've enjoyed it, that the end of the year episode is going to be very Bloomborough centric, I feel like.
I don't know.
So,
You say that
kind
now,
of,
but when we get spooked with this, Duskmorn set, you might be too afraid to even continue doing the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? You're probably not wrong. So, there's that. We'll just have to wait and see. So, without further ado, guys, we talked about this a couple episodes ago, but there is a plethora, a deluge, a good quantity of cards that have come out so far this year. So we've broken them down into 8 categories that we're going to kind of go through. We each have given our own idea of who we think is the best, like quote unquote, winner per category. So just some ideas. Sit back, relax, and we're going to hop in to the very first one. Cole, are you ready?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready. Let's
Mm,
hit me with it.
mm. That was a weak howl. I think you cut out a little bit. I think you transcended many multiverses with that.
I have 2 wolves inside of me, Corey. One is the Aircast.
Dare I ask what the other one is?
It's like work.
The Workwolf. It's not. I thought you were gonna say it was like it's Kevin Costner in the early '90s classic Dancing with Wolves. I thought that was just the natural pickup there.
Well, yeah, you know what? To Corey in the editing booth, work your magic. I got dibs on that reference, so swap them up for me.
Fair enough. And speaking of natural pickups, the most natural pickup that lends to a lot of people getting commanders are precons. So
Smooth
we've gotten.
transition.
I know. Listen, when you're good, you're good. And I've got 2 weeks of just pent up raw energy for this. So expect them to either come fast and furious or to taper off really, really hard on the back nine here. Um, but a lot of people, this is how they get into Commander. This is how they kind of build up their collection. And these are usually, I would say, at year's end when you see the most built commanders on like EDH Rec or Moxfield and stuff like that. It's usually precons. So, first category best precon face and or backup commander.
Uh,
Oh, let's lead it off. Who you got?
Yeah, so I think there's a pretty clear winner here. There were a lot of really great precons. And we talked about them in a recent episode discussing everything that's come out, all the different sets from this year. Some precons were hits, some were misses, but I think it's safe to say that the Modern Horizons 3 precon, the Eldrazi 5 color deck was a absolute slam dunk. It had some really creative new cards. It was, messing around with some old beloved mechanics, and overall just created a lot of interesting design space for Eldrazi. So if you were excited about playing Eldrazi and 2 years ago, your deck would be extremely different than it is now with last year's Ultimate Masters release and then this year's Modern Horizons. So I loved the commander. I've played a lot of games against it, and it seems pretty consistent. The effect is annoying. It pops off or it flops off. So that's my vote.
Okay, I like that. I went with, and this was not my favorite set thus far this year, but going back to our clue based origins, this is not a clue commander, but it's from Murders. I went with Mirko, Obsessive Theorist. So this is the Demir kind of surveil reanimator deck.
Uh-huh.
Um, I really like it. For me, it was the first deck that I've had that was really graveyard focused. So I've dabbled in graveyard decks before, but this was the first one that was like, you're going to land, you're going to be tossing stuff in the graveyard and reanimating it. And I really like the fact that it gives me kind of everything I want, which is flying vigilance. It lets you put counters on it. So already we're talking Brina 2.0. We're talking
Okay.
Demir Brina. Just now, you can also reanimate, and I like the fact that you can reanimate the turn that you get it out. So it's got a lot of cool potential. I think it's kind of one of those commanders that I think when we get to the end of the year, it might get overshadowed by other things in Dustmorn, because I think Dustmorn's probably going to have some reanimation in it.
No.
But I know, real shocker, right? But I think that at the mid-year point, for me, this is the one that's jumped out to me where I'm like, hey, this is a cool deck. When I look at precons, I also really like to have a commander that's both good for an advanced player to grow with, but also is kind of accessible for new players. And I think this does a nice balance where if you want to turn this to a strong deck, you can do that. If you want this to be sort of your first commander deck out of the box, trying to figure out the game, you can also do that and not get confused.
Yeah, it's a great intro to graveyards in general and has great reprints. It's an all around excellent Dimir deck, that's for sure.
So those are our choices. Now, don't get me wrong, there's tons of other cool precons and backup commanders. Personally like, I would say, most of the Fallout ones. I think those did really well. I like
Oh
the
yeah.
Mothman, stuff like that. But I think, for me, Mirko's the choice.
I'll tell you that I actually really liked what you said there about it being kind of friendly for a newer player as well. I think it's a much more digestible deck for a new player, whereas I think you can get caught in the weeds of even Ulalask, the face commander of the Eldrazi precon. If
Mhm.
you are not like familiar with activated and triggered abilities, the wording on it is already kind of awkward. There are, you're trying to double up on stuff. It's generally, I think, a deck that's better suited for a more experienced player. So I think all around, I'd vote. I'll give you my vote on that one too.
Yeah, no, I do like Ululek as well because it is a very powerful commander. So I think that's a great choice as well. I think that is definitely someone that needs to fully understand the stack because it's like colorless triggered abilities and spells and all that kind of stuff. So you need to have like a strong understanding of the foundations of the game. But I think that's another one where you look at that, you look at Zuladoc from last year, and you've got a really solid deck kind of on your hands there.
All right, so I think we can agree it's a tie, or at least a Mirko leaning tie.
Okay, so now we've talked about the easiest entry points. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. So we're going to look at most competitive. So for me, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking about a certain bird that has
That's
been
right.
dominating the ban list wish list. Let's call it that. The ban wish for Santa in 2024. I did not pick Nadu. I don't know if you picked Nadu. I didn't pick Nadu. I wanted to
Uh,
go a little bit different this time.
uh-huh.
I have selected from Assassin's Creed, and I think this is going to be one of those commanders from one of those sets that gets overlooked. Edward Kenway.
Wow, he's so important that I haven't even heard of him in any of the common discourse. Uh, Edward
That's why
Kenway.
he's super competitive.
He must be. He must be.
He's non CDEH CEDH. No, so Edward Kenway, he's not going to be a CEDH commander, I don't think, but I think for a competitive casual, like, when you talk about your eights and nines, but not full blown CEDH, I think this is where his sweet spot is.
Okay.
So you've got a kind of the best, I want to say pirate commander, as well as best, maybe vehicle commander we've seen in a while. So he's 5 cost, he's a 5/5. Sure, whatever. But at the beginning of your end step, you get to make treasure tokens for each tapped assassin, pirate, or vehicle you control.
Hmm.
So already, if you go and you swing all out, and you can easily get a bunch of pirates and assassins and whatnot, and you can also easily tap them because if you go the vehicle route, you gotta tap them to crew the vehicle. So then you're making a bunch of treasure, which comes in untapped. And then if a vehicle you control deals combat damage, you get to look at the top card of that player's library. You can exile it, and then you can play it as long as it remains exiled. And it's exiled face down, so they don't even know what you've taken from them.
Yeah, I'm just shocked that you're leaving the new Beckett Brass unsinkable in the dust like this, because I know
Well,
how much you liked that deck, but that's all
I
right.
do really like that deck, but I'll tell you what, Cole, we're in 2024. You're talking about tail end 2023. She's already been sunk. Edward Kenway comes from the greatest Assassin's Creed game, bar none. That's gonna be my hot take, the correct hot take. That is Assassin's Creed or Black Flag, the finest of all of Ubisoft's catalog. And frankly, the coolest color combination in Grixis.
Okay. Well, just to be clear, the question, the category here revolves around the most competitive, not the coolest pirate. And if it was the coolest pirate commander, you might stand a chance. But the most competitive commander, whether you like it or not, is like you foretold, the Nadu, the Winged Wisdom, the boogeyman of of every format from here to Mama's house. This
I've actually
bird
never
is
heard of it.
oh well. Basically, he draws you every card in your library and wins the game. On turn two when you get him, as soon as you cast him. No,
Is
that's not
this?
true, but it's pretty similar. He's Simic. He's Simic good stuff. Everybody on the internet has been just talking about how much of a hellscape it is to play against him. Every time he gets targeted with any sort of ability or any creature you control, up to a total of 2 times each, you get to look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, you put it onto the battlefield or you draw it into your hand. So if you try to remove him, he generates you advantage. If you have any of the zero cost equips, spells or anything along those lines, you're getting massive amounts of advantage. And not to mention that the turns are like non-determinate, they're indeterminate, so you basically have to walk through it. You can't shortcut it, and it's like a 20-minute turn by turn four if you have Llanowar elves out. So he's pretty strong. I haven't. I've been lucky enough to not really have the misfortune of playing against him, but I remember seeing him back before he dropped. Everybody thought he was going to be crazy. Surprise, not really. He's crazy.
I like that you bring up the zero cost equipment because this is probably the card that single handedly brought was it Shuko, that like zero costed equipment that really doesn't do anything.
Right.
That card went from what, like 10 cents to like $20 or something overnight.
Well, and they're reprinting it soon in this mystery boosters. So keep your eyes peeled for those, or drop them if you have a ton of them. It's time to sell. So
Yeah,
best of luck.
I think listen, you and I don't really give out financial advice on this, but I think it would be sell time if I were in those shoes.
Agreed.
I think you flip it, and then in a year or 2 years, when that card is back down to being, let's say, $1.25, you're gonna go, man, I'm so glad I sold off my playset of bulk bin equipment, at $20 a piece or $30 or whatever it's at right now.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. This is the time to do it. It's probably too late, to be honest with you, because as soon as Shuko was spoiled, I'm sure it kind of cut the price down a bit. So you're actually running out of time. But don't take our word for it. This isn't a financial podcast, but it is a commander podcast. So let's move on to the next category. Corey, the next category
Hmm.
is going to be exciting because we have like a little bit of a surprise in it. But we are next going to talk about the most fun commander of 2023 or 2024. Oh, almost got me there. I was reading MH3.
Hmm.
Now you got me saying it. But so please
Is it
share with us
also
your
Nadu?
favorite, your most fun. You don't necessarily have to have played this commander, but maybe played against it and had a fun time, or otherwise just an enjoyable design space that tickles your fancy.
Well, let me tell you about Nadu Winged. Oh, no, no, wait, I'm sorry. I blacked out for a second. You said fun. Oh, no, I actually went for one that I have not seen anyone else play. I've kind of net decked it and messed around a little bit on Moxfield with it, and that is Red Death Shipwrecker from the Fallout universe.
Oh, interesting.
And it's sort of like, I don't know how to describe it. It's one of those things where it's very unthreatening. No one's gonna bother your commander. You can just kind of like dirtle around and have fun. So it's just is it? It's a little 1/3 crab. It taps to go target creatures that opponents control, and then you let them draw a card, and you add 1 red mana. It's kind of like a mana dork that also goads, that also gives like a little political card draw.
Okay.
I don't know. It seems cute. It seems fun. I don't know anybody that's like, I have to destroy this 1/3 crab that's not attacking me because it's going to goad my one creature and they're going to get one red mana off of it.
You can say that all you
Seems
want, but I
unassuming.
know that the dark truth of the matter is that with an infinite untapper, or if you have some way to infinitely untap something, you win the game with this crab on the battlefield because he allows you to draw out everybody's decks, provided you don't draw them into any sort of removal that they can cast, hopefully for a low enough cost, but then you're also generating a ton of red mana. So yeah, you're going to be able to cast those forks or those reiterates or those uh, Jessica's wills into a deflecting swat. So I don't know. I don't know, Corey, about this innocent crab of yours.
Okay, but you're talking about like if I could infinitely tap and untap this in blue, Call in blue. Who's heard of such a thing?
And then everybody clapped and everybody laughed.
Yeah, exactly. Cue pause for laugh track and cue applause.
And that's our time, everybody. Thank you. Another episode of the EDH.
Mm. How
Well,
about yourself? I
I
know
so
I was entertaining and fun, but what about you?
okay. Well, here we'll go to my run-of-the-mill answer. Here, Scryfall random. Just kidding. What we have here is Harry Gast. So this was we've actually talked a little bit about this, um, and a couple of other episodes. But Harry Gast is a devoid commander. He wants you to emerge. Uh, I'm just getting this in, folks. He's not devoid, but he is, colorless other than the red and his emerge cost. But basically, he wants you to sacrifice creatures and cast big creatures based on that discount. And so I originally this commander looked cool, but he's a 9-drop, and he wasn't super exciting to me. But I saw a really interesting game that looked like just tantalizingly fun, where somebody was playing Harry Gast to take control of other people's creatures and then use them to emerge into their own big Eldrazi or big red, creatures. And so a lot of the steel like active treason effects are pretty cool when you cast them. They give you the card haste. You're able to crash them into your opponents. But then what do you do with it afterwards? Well, Harry Gast allows you to turn somebody's commander into your own Kozilek the Great Distortion, for a pretty phenomenally low rate. So I like this. I have an Atog deck that's all about stealing and eating people's creatures, and so this tickled my fancy as a bit of a modern take on my deck, which is kind of an older card.
I have also fallen in love with this card. Um, I don't think I've seen the stealing thing before. Now, what I have seen that's a lot of fun is sort of like the chaining 9-10 mana, and you go, all right, I'm gonna play a 1-drop, then emerge it into a 2-drop, into a 3-drop, into a 4-drop, and you sit
Hmm.
there, and as long as you've got the right hand with like ETB effects or even dice triggers, you're eating good.
Yeah, I think it looks fun. I know you spoke about this in a not too long ago episode, so I'm not writing your curtails on that one. This is my own independent thought, but I'm glad that you agree that you like him, and that almost makes me think I would win this category, unless.
Bum bum bum. So here is the stunning twist. Not that that's that stunning or that much of a twist, really. So for all of these categories, we have also reached out to fellow people in the Magic the Gathering community and asked them to kind of represent you guys. So we've got my opinion, we've got Cole's opinion, and now we've got a community representative in each category where they have selected one card that fits their idea of most fun or anything for the future categories.
Yeah.
So, for most fun, we have one of our favorite guests to bring on. She's been on twice. We got to bring her on a couple more times, I'm sure. But the host of the MTG YouTube channel and Twitch streamer,
MTG.
Ashley.
You just gotta really
Yes,
enunciate that, not the
MTG.
host of the MTG YouTube channel.
Every
Ashley,
time every time
yes.
she's on here, I
Uh-huh.
was say every time she's on here, I feel like I have to really enunciate it because it's sort of like I don't want to say MTG and then she's not getting any kind of traffic. It's everybody's just going to like the Wizards of the Coast Magic the Gathering channel, going like I don't see her anywhere on here.
Oh,
Who's
I
this
100%
Gavin
agree.
guy? Who's this? You know.
So what did
But
Ashley
yes,
say was the most fun commander?
Ashley, who is kind of like our resident token aficionado, she selected Kambal, Profiteering Mare. I'm gonna read this one out real quick. So we're gonna try and spend more time on these community picks because they're fresh takes for us. We obviously know what we like and don't like. So Kambal is an Orzhov. It's one white black for a 2/4 human advisor. Whenever one or more tokens enter the battlefield under your opponent's control, for each of them, create a tapped token that's a copy of it. The ability triggers only once per turn. Whenever one or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses one life and you gain one life. So this is sort of like a veto style, like life drain, life gain kind of effect, but tokens, and you get to copy a bunch of tokens.
Yeah, because there's so many like inconsequential tokens that people make nowadays, especially with like this meta of, everything makes a treasure or makes you, eventually a food or a junk or like you're gonna get tokens. So I think the like the in unintentional value of this is just out off the charts, and then it has basically a built-in win con there. So I think that's a great choice. Orzhov Aristocrats is always fun, but this is gonna take advantage of your opponents when they have those early pop-offs.
Well, and you know what's interesting too? So when she brought up this choice, she made this really valid kind of point, which I wouldn't have considered. So when I look at this commander, I'm thinking about what people are making on their turn, right? Like, oh, you made 20 treasures, so I got to copy 20 treasures.
Right.
This is also working on tokens you could give somebody. So the example she gave me was generous gift. So you could actually use generous gift on somebody, giving them the elephant, and then you also get to make a copy of the elephant on your side. So it kind of balances out the fact that you're giving them something.
Okay, yeah, so it gives added benefits to a already really strong series of removal. I think overall, I'm pro Camball.
I am
Is
too, and
is there
I like
space
the
for a
original Campbell too.
Cambala Harris joke here? I'm not
Hmm.
sure, but I'm
Are
pro
you saying
Camball and pro Kamala. I'm happy to say that.
are you trying to say that you're gonna build a Campbell and walls deck? Like it's just Campbell and then a bunch of walls?
No, it's the Camball and the Couches deck.
Mm.
JD
You know,
Vance. We got to be careful getting into
not that
politics here, Corey. Let's keep it brief. But what are you gonna say?
okay. What I was gonna say is, you've been around Commander and Magic for a long time, so I know you've heard of this before. But do you remember when people used to sit there and build like chair decks? They would sit there and go, "Well, everything has chair in the art."
Oh yeah, that was an iconic like joke deck. That's the example of like, what's your jank deck? A jank is zero. It's a chair deck. Yeah, it's iconic.
So, do you think he played like a couch deck?
I mean, didn't they like find
It's like
him? They traced him down, and he did play Tron. I heard that. I know there's like a funny.
yeah,
Uh,
he played Yawgmoth's Bargain or whatever like that he was saying.
all right, all right, all right. What are we? Is this a JD Vance cast or is this the Urcast? Let's. I guess vote. I think Camball wins because it's
Yeah, I
interesting
think
and
Campbell
cool.
wins.
Okay.
This really went off the rails there for a second. Next up, a lot of times when we look at commanders, by the way, I'm gonna pat myself on the back because this is the category I thought of. So a lot of times when we look at commanders, we're talking about rares, mythics, But there's been a decent amount, especially in recent years, uncommon commanders. So that kind of slide in under the radar a little bit. Cole, why don't you start this one off? What is your best uncommon commander at the midpoint of 2024?
Well, okay, so I do have two answers for this. I couldn't narrow it down to just one. And I'll tell you why, because
Hmm.
I think uncommon, okay, so not only is it really interesting that, these can be played in your popper games as your commander, and there's always better room or more room for popper commanders. One card has really stuck out as like it's just a auto include in any sort of Golgari deck, and so this is more so a 99 in your 99 than rather a commander. But it's Honest Rutstein. He's a green, a black, and one. And when he ETBs, he returns a creature from your graveyard to your hand, and he makes your creature spells you cast cost one less to cast. He's a 3/2 for three. His art's kind of dorky, but it's just a really absolutely solid card. So I feel remiss not to mention it. Um, but my personal pick of like best commander at the uncommon level is going to be Shao Jun. And so Shao Jun is one, a blue and a red, and it has two abilities. Long Strike, which as long as it's your turn, she has flying and first strike, and then she also has Rope Dart, where you can tap two untapped artifacts you control and deal one damage to each opponent. She's a 3/3 for three, a little bit better than your Honest Rutstein rate, but I really like her because it's basically just artifact synergy of like if you can make enough tokens, you can win the game. So I'm hoping to make enough treasures and then tap them and kill everybody, ideally at instant speed. I think she's really fun and low to the ground and kind of unassuming until she really hits.
I like that. I also went the Assassin's Creed route with Honest Ruts. Sorry, Assassin's Creed, Assassin's Creed.
Whoa!
But I went mono red with Alexios Deimos of Cosmos, which I've just flawlessly pronounced, by the way.
Golf clap, everybody.
Yeah, there we go. I felt good. I felt good at Alexios, and I felt good at Cosmos. I felt okay about the of. I'm gonna say Deimos was probably a real coin flip if I got it right or not.
I'll give it
But
to
this
you.
is yeah,
You did it.
as a natural Greek speaker that we both are, we've just really nailed it. But this is the new slicer, I guess I would consider it. So it's a
Yeah.
4/4 for 4 trample. It has to attack each combat, can't be sacrificed, can't attack its owner. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, it gets passed around, so they have to pass it around and put counters on it. It gains haste again, just so that when you pass it around, it can automatically attack. Basically, it's Slicer without the backside of Slicer.
Yeah, he's a little bit more like I think fun because Slicer, if everybody teams up, can kill somebody on the first turn rotation that he comes out if there's no blocks. Double
Mhm.
Strike is really strong. Alexios obviously has Trample, which is like just a good concession, I think. It makes him he's still strong. He's still going to be dealing damage. He's still getting 1/1 counters on him, but he's not wiping somebody out on the first turn. So I like him a lot more.
Well, yeah, and I think the difference is with Slicer because of Double Strike, it's a lot harder to block because you're getting that first strike damage in and then hitting it whatever it is again. So they have to really be able to absorb some hits. Whereas
But he doesn't have
I
Trample.
mean, he doesn't have trample, but I mean, a 4/4 is inherently easier to block, I feel like, because odds are you might have a 4/4 or 4/5 or something. So until it gets some counters, you're in a
Uh,
better shape. But that trample damage, it'll get you at a certain point.
well, and the other thing that Slicer has going for him is that Slicer deals damage twice, and so a lot of these decks rely on equipment that have when this creature deals combat damage to a player effects, and you get to benefit from them because it's you control the equipment. Um,
Mhm.
you are getting double the value with Slicer as opposed to Alexios, who is only hitting once. So he definitely is a different card than Slicer, but it certainly is a similar flavored cake.
No, fair enough. Now, our special guest for this version, and I think there was some collusion. I'm going to throw it out right now. So we talked about Ashley for the last category. So we got the other half of the duo, the other co-host of the MTG YouTube channel, very own guest Ken EDH.
Oh, woo! Yeah, Ken.
And here's why I think there's collusion because Ken, well, okay, so first off, Ken's immediate response was in the 99, Honest Rutstein.
Whoa.
Yeah, like, and that's not collusion, by the way. That was legit. I asked him, what he thought would be the best uncommon at this point of the year, and he went, well, in the 99 is Honest Rutstein, but in the command zone, you also went Orzov. So apparently, birds of a feather kind of situation here that both co-hosts both went Orzov.
Interesting, interesting. I think
Yeah.
you're onto something.
Also, both commanders both co-hosts went Orzov, and they both went token Orzov, which is real sus.
Whoa. Okay, what
Um,
is this card? Spit it out.
so for two, a white and a black, Ken has selected Baron Bertram Greywater, another Orzhov commander from Thunder Junction, by the way. So for two white black, you get a 3/4 Vampire Noble. Whenever one or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, you create a 1/1 black Vampire Rogue creature token with lifelink. Ability only triggers
Interesting.
once each turn. Then, for one in a black, sacrifice another creature or artifact and you draw a card.
That's valid. I think that's a consistently draw. It turns out drawing cards is good.
I've been told, apparently.
The way you worded that, I thought he was just going to be a single black and a white mana, and I was like, oh man, that sounds like a lot, but a lot for a two mana card. But no, he seems pretty solid. The art is pretty majestic too. He's got like a solid stance. Um,
He does kind of have that. You're doing my portrait, and I've been around since the 1860s, and I'm somewhat of a aristocracy sort.
I mean, it's a portrait of a vampire because he can't look into the mirror and see himself. So this is going to be one of the few times that he sees his own. I guess unless he got turned into a vampire like at that age with that mustache. I don't know. And it's also difficult, I bet, to keep a handlebar mustache when you can't see yourself in the mirror. So
Like,
that's my question.
okay, but here's what we got to figure out, and I think this depends on which canon you're looking at. Can a vampire grow a mustache? Like post turning, right?
Uh-huh.
Let's assume he was clean shaven. Can he then have grown a mustache,
So, okay,
regardless of
I'm so
difficulty of
sorry.
maintenance?
You're suggesting a world where vampires they don't grow hair. Their hair doesn't grow. Like they are, so if you shave a vampire,
Mm.
they're bald, they're not regrowing. Every hair that's
Okay,
like,
well,
because then all vampires like end up probably hairless over time because you lose so many hairs in your sleep. You run a brush through it, your hairs are gone. Like, I just don't, I think
but
that
why?
that's
Okay, but
unrealistic.
why would you run a brush through your hair if you don't even have a mirror? Who cares what you look like?
I mean, really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you look like. You are beautiful on the inside, even if you're a blood-sucking baron. But the
Blood
fact of the
sucking
matter
Baron from
is,
the.
vampires' hair, I think, grows. And if vampires were real, and I'm not saying they are, but
Mm,
I will die on
uh-huh.
that hill that I think they can get haircuts, and it's not over for them, you know.
So living dead, as in like vampires, can grow hair, but the undead. Oh no, wait, is it the other way around? Are they the undead and then the living dead is like zombies?
I mean, okay, well, this is entirely like a different
But
debate,
what? Okay,
but I
but
think
what I'm saying
those are
is a
synonyms in my
zombie can't
mind.
grow hair though, right? A
Um,
zombie is a decaying corpse,
what
but a
powers the
vampire.
zombie? Because like
Huh.
all the vampires don't have blood running through their veins, but
Mm,
they do. They're just, I guess, are they magic? Are they ran by magic?
okay, so here's
What
what I'm
keeps them
saying.
going? Yeah.
If a grave digger or a grave robber,
Yeah.
because this is Wild West, right? So if a grave robber is out there digging up a corpse and he gets struck by lightning and it hits his favorite tin of pomade and therefore electrifies and creates a electromagnetic field all around the graveyard,
Uh-huh.
are they now being powered by Rogaine, and will they have hair, regardless of how they were in death?
I mean, it's decaying tissue. I mean, my serious answer for you, Corey, is that I think the follicles, like once your follicles are, dead, they those aren't
Uh,
further growing hair. I do think, I love the lightning, hitting the hems or whatever, uh the hair supplements, but I don't know if I can. I don't think I'm the authority on this discussion, to be
okay,
honest with
well,
you.
what purpose? You've got a science degree. I've got a science degree. What's the point of two science degrees being here on an audio podcast? By the way, because we're talking in audio about visual features. What like just we should just flush it all down the toilet at this point because we obviously have lost all value. That
Honestly,
we can't come together on a conclusion here.
let's abandon this hypothesis altogether and move into the next category. Corey, most likely to break into the EDH top 100. This is card or cards that are, just about scraping into that one hundo spot. Your most common 100 commanders across the, I guess, mainly American website EDH. I think you probably miss out on a lot of or EDH rec. I think isn't 100% accurate of the world, but it's certainly an interesting metric to look at.
I like that we're talking like, hey, what's the most likely to enter EDH Rec 100, and you're already like qualifying. Well, really, it's not an accurate reflection of the game so much as a small sliver of the American meta of the game, as seen through the lenses of various other deck building websites. So okay, so here's how I kind of treat it, right? So
Right.
EDH Rec 100, if we're looking at them, in my opinion, and this is just at a glance, I don't have any scientific data to back this up, but I feel like two types of commanders end up in this list. They're either extremely powerful, talking about things like Yuriko or the Dragon
Uh-huh.
or will held stuff where it's like it is the predominant commander for that strategy, or it is a niche strategy and this is like the single best commander for it,
Right,
you
and
know
that way it's like it's just getting anybody who has ever played this category or this style of magic is like, oh, we'll jump ship on our whatever we're haphazardly throwing into the head of a neg one counters deck and take this new guy on and uh, bam, it's top 100 because it just gets so much immediate support.
yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I want to get into the neg one counters, or I want to build infect and this is the best infect commander you could have. So I went with the latter logic on this, which is the let's go for a somewhat niche strategy, but let's find the best commander of said niche strategy.
Okay.
So I went with a commander from Modern Horizons 3, face commander Satya Aetherflux Genius. So this is the Jeskai energy commander that basically when it comes out and when you play creature, or I'm sorry, when you attack, you make like you get energy and then you can spend energy to keep on these like tokens. So you make tokens of other attacking creatures. It's
Okay.
it's like half token, half energy. Now, I think that this one will eventually crack the 100. I don't know where it stands today. I didn't look up those numbers, but I do think this has a better than not chance of cracking those numbers because it's the best energy commander that we've seen so far. And we've gotten two energy precons this year alone. One with the one that has Satya as the face commander, and then also the science precon from Fallout. So you already have a lot of support coming out just in the front half of 2024. I don't know that we see any more coming out in the back half, but I could see, future sets down the line where we see some more support, pieces here and there that are in these colors because a lot of energy support is in these three colors, and it helps kind of bolster it and float it up the numbers. I think float it up the ranking system.
I think it's a fine card. It's got a fun effect. I recently have been, running my mono red dragon deck with Kiki Jiki at the front of it because making copies of creatures on combat is fun. Making copies of creatures on combat is fun. Uh, so I think that's a great choice. Now, I'll tell you, it is statistically the wrong choice. But I
Mm,
think it's a good choice. Now, my my logic here, and I don't think that this is unfair. I don't think that this is against the game, was to like kind of look at the stats. And so when we initially, okay, so to set the scene for you, when we started writing the notes for this episode, well, my notes are time stamped. Things have changed because originally I was going to tell you guys that there already is one commander in the top 100 from this year, and that was Voja, the Claws of the Conclave, and it
okay.
was at number 80 with I don't know how many decks it had at the time, but we've seen a drastic increase, and so I didn't want to include this one, in because it was already in the top 100, and this category is most likely to break in. But Voja
Mm.
is now at 74, and with a whopping 9,569 decks. So it's only a few spots behind Dihada, the Binder of Wills, and it just passed Morophon. Oh my gosh, I'm looking now.
Now,
I'm seeing the Wise Mothman on this list too. Oh wow, this is crazy at 76. Okay, but so
now before
yeah.
you reveal this, right? I do have a Voja question for you
Uh-huh.
because if we had done a first quarter of 2024, like we're talking half year mark right now, but if we had done a first quarter of 2024, it would have been the Voja hate fest, right? Like how much of the Twitter, Reddit, internet discourse was Voja's broken, Voja's busted, Voja this,
It
Voja
it
that.
still is.
I
It
don't want to
still
play
is. It's
against it.
horrible. It's a
Right,
don't play it.
but
It's a bad card.
what I'm saying is, like, do you think Nadu has now pushed Voja down the pipeline where people just like, oh, you know what, it's fine. I can go back to building my Voja deck in
No,
peace
I think
now because everyone's
Voja is
focused on the
still
bird.
just as strong and horrible as it always was. It's if you want to build it, that's all up to you to have fun. But I think playing against it, it is just a super pushed card, and then it has Ward 3 on top of a already really powerful effect that refills your hand. It crater hoofs your creatures. It's 5 drop 5/5 with vigilance and trample, and it's a mouthful. So we're not talking about him anymore. He's a great card. Do
Sure.
your thing. Do your thing. But the second part of my stat was my guess was statistically that the next most likely will be the president and CEO, Mr. House. He's at 108 right now. He's fun and unique, and he has a good take on dice rolling, which similarly to yours is a very it's a kind of a unique category of itself. But I'm shocked and ashamed to discover that he's actually at rank 100 right now. So he's broken
Hmm.
in to the top 100, thusly taking him out of the running also. And at this time, he had 7,321 decks, and Obeka was number 100 with 7,783. Well, Mr. House passed Obeka and actually launched Obeka is losing popularity. She's at rank 103 right now. Brago and
Wait, is this
Hazian.
new? Is this
No,
new
this is
Obeka or old
the
Obeka?
OG Obeka, who's been out for quite
Okay.
some time. But she is a great card, but she's dropped down 3 rankings. Okay, so the final answer to this is the next most likely one is uh, is going to be Obeka Splitter of Seconds, which
Okay.
is the new Obeka. So that's I mean it's only a matter of time the way things go statistically. Or I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Also
Rewind.
in the top.
Hazion. It's the new Hazion. He's number 102. He's at
Okay.
7,740. So, yeah, he's the next most likely statistically. Okay.
So basically, what you're saying is you picked like four commanders. They were all in the top 100.
No, originally I had picked one commander, which was Mr. House. He ended up hitting the
Hmm.
top 100, and so the next following answer is Hazion, Shaper of Sand, and then following that Obeka, the new Obeka. But so yeah,
Okay.
that's basically it.
Well, and here's one that I had not considered, but I can see it coming, right? So this one comes from Cody and Laz over at our, I don't want to say sister podcast, but over at one of our other podcasts from our good friends Cody and Laz, the Brew Review podcast. And they have selected for the third time, third category in a row, Outlaws of Thunder Junction.
Wow.
So we have Bristly Bill Spine Sower, which is a 1 and a green for a 2/2 plant druid with landfall. So whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you put a 1/1 counter on target creature. And then for 3 green green, you double the number of 1/1 counters on each creature you control.
Yep. He's a win con. Thanks guys for that answer. He's a really great card. He's really cool. Cactus are dope, and he basically has a. If you get enough mana, you can send a 1/1 trampler at somebody and get. Or I guess it'd have to be really a 0/0 with a 1/1 counter on it, and then you double the counters up from there. But he's a really strong card, and that's a great choice. Let's see where he's at on
Yeah,
the list.
and this is in mono green, so you can have your classic mono green shenanigans of like doubling season, hardened scales. It's landfall, so you put in all your classic landfall drops, and suddenly this is one of those things where you could take a small creature and put 10 counters on it in a turn. If you have like an Azusa out, then you go, cultivate, revisits, nature's lore, and then just regular land drops, stuff like that. Like, it gets beefy real fast.
And just for the record, he is rank 838, so I think he is. It's going to be quite a time before he ends up breaking into the top 100. But as a card rather than just a commander, he is in 3% of 60 or 604,000 decks. So he's he's there. He exists.
He's exists, yeah. You know what though? That one has shown, from what I've heard. Now, I'm not like a big CEDH tourney grinder, but I've heard that it is somewhat blipping on the radar there. So maybe we start seeing some Bristly Bill action if it gains steam that way.
Ah,
Also, and
man,
this might
interesting.
be a little bit of a spoiler, but if you guys are fans of the Brew Review podcast, one, obviously check them out. Check out all our guests or all the people contributing here. But Cody is actually going to be on Friday's episode. So this one coming out on Wednesday. Give it 2 days. Cody's going to be on that episode. It was a fun one to record, and I think you guys
Yeah.
will enjoy it.
Thanks, Cody, and thanks, Brewview, for letting us borrow him.
Yeah. All right. Now we're going to move into a more personable category, one that should really speak to your heart. And this is going to be the most likely to be built by you category. So, we've seen a lot of commanders. Every time we have a set review, we talk a little bit about which commander we think is most likely to make it into our rotation. Spoiler alert, I don't think any of them have actually managed to do so yet. But Cole, if you had to distill all of these down into the one quintessential commander for you, which one is most likely to be built by you or has already been built by you, I guess?
Ugh, well, I already did build
Take it
one.
away.
I built one, and I haven't played it too much. I had some really strong games with it, and so I don't really want to define it to myself, but it is a Outlaws of Thunder Junction card. It's the Get Raw Ravenous Ride,
Hmm.
which was it's a great card. It's a great version of Gitrog, but built as efficiently as I have it, it can be a little bit oppressive because it's difficult to get rid of the Gitrog. So my other choice for a card that I do really want to build this year is Laughing Jasper Flint. He's a lizard rogue. He's a one, a black and a red, and he makes other creatures you don't own but control mercenaries. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you can exile the top X cards of target opponent's library, where X is the number of outlaws you control, and cast those cards using mana of any type. This until the end of turn. And so it's just like a fun little theft deck where you want to build up a big army of mercenaries and outlaws, and then use that army to grab insane advantage off of your opponent's libraries. I really like my Scarab God deck, which kind of does a similar thing to people's graveyards. So I kind of think this is a similar but different taste in a Rakdos flavor.
Yeah, and I like this too, and I think this is one that is going to see a lot of support still in the future, because the nice thing about the outlaw kind of mechanic is that the creature types they chose for it are things they're going to keep making. They're going to make more assassins, more rogues. Like, it's stuff that comes out every single set.
Right.
So you can constantly build up on that deck. And also, I know we're not going to talk about Bloomborough, but there's another set of red black lizard folk somewhere in the pipeline.
All
So
right,
just
Kermit.
throwing that out there.
What about you,
uh,
Corey?
I I went with the backup commander from a Outlaws of Thunder Junction deck. So we're getting a lot of Outlaws of Thunder Junction this episode. But I went with Kiri Talented Sprout. So that's the one colorless Naya little like cactus toddler.
She's cute, yeah.
She is cute. So it's a 0/3, gives other plants and tree folks +2/+0. And then at the beginning of your post combat main phase, you can return a plant, a tree folk, or a land from your graveyard to your hand. So it helps you fuel if you want to go into a landfall strategy, helps you fuel those kind of strategies. This is gonna seem kind of mean, but the way I saw it, and I think the way I would end up building this in sort of like a targeted land destruction sense, because I can see this is something where you could sit there and loop like a bunch of strip mines, desolation fields, stuff like that. So you could play a
Uh-huh.
strip mine, destroy somebody else's thing, return your strip mine back to your hand, do it again, and just kind of stifle the board without really playing like MLD, mass land destruction.
I mean, I wouldn't even argue that's mass land destruction. It's once on your turn at the beginning of your post-combat main phase. It's not unless you have ways to play, additional lands, or you can do it twice on a turn if you like, you know, wasteland, return it, play the wasteland, do it again. But it's like, I don't think that's necessarily mass land destruction.
Yeah, no, it's not mass land destruction, but I do think it's an interesting idea to kind of suppress the board a little bit, because you're in green, so ideally you can ramp faster than other people. So you get enough lands out there to kind of cast as many spells as you need and then sit there and like loop, like I said, one off targets, which frankly, there's some lands out there now that need destroying. Like people running Field of the Deads, come on, you can lose your Feel of the Dead and not get salty about it. It shouldn't be untouchable. Now, if I'm looping this and destroying all your basics or something, yeah, I could see how that's maybe not the best like gameplay experience, but I think it looks fun. It looks cute. Plant and tree folk, there's a lot of options, but not so many options that it's like the most busted creature type imaginable. So I think it's just kind of a fun ho hum deck with a real cute commander.
I agree. And now, what did our friends say from the internet to prove us both wrong?
So, our friends from the internet, and this is someone you may or may not know. So we have Erica from Love and Mana MTG. I heard it's a
Whoa.
budding Instagram channel. So she has thrown out here Sophia, Dogged Detective, which is one green, white, blue for a 3/4 human detective for murders at Karlov Manor. When Sophia Dog Detective enters the battlefield, you create Tiny, a legendary 2/2 green dog detective. Creature token with trample. For one and sacrificing artifact token, you can put a 1/1 counter on each dog you control. And then whenever a dog you control deals combat damage to a player, create a food token and then investigate to create a clue token.
Yeah, I mean, this is clearly it's going to be a secret lair for Shaggy and Scooby, and so we've kind of taken that same idea in mind and really want to build this into a Scooby-Doo themed deck, and it's a really cute card. And our good friends Carlos, Greg, and Raul got us these really cute tokens that reflect the Sophia and Tiny as Shaggy and Scooby, and it's just waiting to be built. So just you wait. That one is going to be pretty fun to mess around with.
Yeah, and this is also one where this was so on my radar to build too, especially when the set first came out. And I kind of had decision paralysis about it, because it was sort of like, do I want to go the artifact route? Because if you have triggers off of artifacts entering the battlefield, I mean, you're making multiple. You're making food. You're making clues each like I don't want to say each turn, but you can make multiple each turn based off of how many dogs you have dealing combat.
Right.
You also could go the plus one counter route because you can put those on all your dogs, and then you're in green, like we talked about with Bristly Bill. So you have a bunch of counter doublers. You're in white, so you got a bunch of counter, doublers, stuff like that. Or do you just go all dogs? It was such a magical commander that I could not decide which route to put it in, and I didn't want to have like three sub themes.
I mean, it's a pretty versatile commander. You can build it. You don't have to build it around dogs, but it helps. But it's I think it's really fun and it's banned, so you get great color options. I agree with you. I think maybe that's gonna scrape into the top 100 one day. Let's see where that's at.
This is one I could see. Like if Voja made it in, I could see this one making it in,
It's at
at some point as well.
624. So considering it is in a commander deck, it's a little bit more accessible, I think, than other cards because you can always play it as
Mhm.
an alternative commander. But it's rising up there. It's certainly closer than Bristly Bill. So
Yeah, I think this is one of those things where it would be higher up if it wasn't for the existence of Ren and Siri. Like if Ren and Siri didn't exist and this was your only dog route, I think this would be a higher commander.
yeah, and agreed. Now,
Now,
yeah, let's move on. We've
all
got a
right.
good category up here.
Now, we've talked about what we would most likely build, but now let's look at what we think is the best designed gameplay or flavor design thus far. So I'm gonna start this one off because I don't have too much to say, as we've already kind of touched on it. I went Harry-Gast Erupting Nullkite, which was the 6/6 Eldrazi dragon with a merge, giving your other creatures a merge.
Uh-huh.
I just think, we kind of already discussed it a little bit ago, but I think it's just a great, fun commander that opens up a lot of interesting gameplay option because you get to cheat things in. You kind of brought up the decks that have like steal stuff and then sacrifice those to cheat things in. 10 out of 10, I think it's a great design. I think it's one that kind of flies under the radar a little bit. Looks like it would be a lot of fun with the right deck shell built around it.
I think that's really great. I mean, I spoke about it earlier. I think like kind of similarly to Sophia, it's a pretty versatile card. You can build it in a couple different ways. I think that's a great choice. It's a fun design. It brings back a merge, which is always interesting. An emerging, you know, design space there.
What
Now,
about yourself? Did you go, let me ask you this first. Did you go gameplay or flavor?
I mean, I kind of went for a combination of both, I think, with this card. I've always loved Field of the Dead. I know you were hating on it earlier, but I've always loved the effect. It's a fun game of trying to get, your different names of lands into your deck and still keep it running smoothly and still have enough basics to be able to, use your ramp system. But this is the Necro Bloom. It's one and an Abzon for a legendary plant. It's a 2/7. Wow, you're gonna have a hard time killing that guy, but he has landfall and it's basically Field of the Dead. Whenever a land ETB is under your control, you create a 0/1 green plant creature token. And if you control 7 or more lands with different names, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token instead. So it's like explicitly a stronger Field of the Dead effect. And he also gives land cards in your graveyard dredge too. So there's certainly some sick, nasty combos in this. I'm certain of it. But the art is really cool. The showcase art of it it's just a beautiful plant and it has like you can see a kind of a skeletal remains of a person. Or I get really at this point not necessarily skeletal, but decaying for sure, beating against the inside trying to escape. But I think it's a little too late for him. But it's not too late for you to pick this up. It's recently dropped. It's MH3 and it's selling for $1.31 on TCG Player. So it's clearly a pretty abundant card, but it's good. It's fun.
And who doesn't love Field of the Dead?
You, I mean, earlier I think you kind of dogged on it. You said that you need mass land destruction or something, similar to be able to deal
Listen,
with pesky lands
I'm
such
saying,
as.
well, I'm just saying, if you play it, I should be welcome to destroy it. Doesn't mean I don't also play it. You just shouldn't destroy mine, whereas I should be able to destroy yours. It's a fair trade off in my mind.
Well, I'm all for MLD. I famously brought Ruination to. I was playing a mono red deck and I played Ruination. And Ruination is mass land destruction, but it's like way better because it just destroys non-basic lands. And so if you're playing a mono-colored deck, you might really come out on top of this. But everybody was like so mad that I'd played Ruination, and they're like, "Oh, do you have an immediate follow-up to win the game?" And it's like, no, my follow-up is now taking the advantage of, like, this is like 6 or 7 years ago when Red didn't have a lot of the, like, oh, catch up ramp and like, ooh, impulse
Mhm.
draw and shit. So excuse my French there, but I was basically just trying to gain an advantage by sending everybody back to the Stone Age, and I was laughed at. Not really. They were kind of salty about it, but I felt like that's a valid play. So leave a comment or answer below if you think Ruination is um bad or if it's fine.
Now, I will say this. So this is going to be a sneak peek right here for next week's episode. So next week we're going to talk about Gen Con. We're going to finally rip off the band-aid. We're going to talk Gen Con. Here's your little sneak preview. So I had an opportunity to check out Mystery Booster 2.
Uh-huh.
And in drafting it, there's a lot of mass lane destruction spells in there.
Good, good. And hopefully it'll
I'm
get
just,
people hyped.
so I'm just gonna throw that out there, that little tidbit that in drafting that set, I probably saw 4 to 5 mass land destruction, either spells or abilities that destroy multiple lands. Take
I
that
am
for what
all
it's
for it.
worth.
Uh-huh.
It's there.
Yeah, good news for MLD lovers and philosophers, such as myself. So
Mhm.
GG noobs.
And that GG is get good, right?
It is, it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, what was
Now,
what was the fan choice? What was the friend choice?
the friend choice. So from this one, we are going to another podcast. We talked about brew review. Let's talk about another podcast. So this is going to be Matt from Flavor Profiles, one of the co-hosts of Flavor Profiles. He gave. So I'm going to tell you the card, and then I'm going to tell you his reasoning behind it because he went on a flavor. Believe it or not, the guy from Flavor Profiles went on a flavor choice, and
Shocking.
he gave probably one of the deeper analysis of a card from a flavor standpoint that I've ever heard.
Oh, well, I'm
So
excited to hear it. Yeah.
his choice is Sigurd, Jarl of Ravensthorpe, which is red, green, white for a 3/3 human warrior with Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink. And then also comes with Boast. So Boast is back. Boast, which is a 1 colorless to, or 1 generic. I got corrected on this the other day. It's not colorless, it's generic. So 1 generic to put a lore counter on target saga you control or remove one from it. Then, whenever you put a lore counter on a saga you control, put a 1/1 counter on up to one other target creature.
Okay.
So, it lets you advance through your sagas or repeat some chapters, lets you buff up your creatures as well. If you choose to buff up this card right here, you're getting a bigger lifelink, trampling, vigilance, beefy boy. Now, let's break this down. So, Matt says this card really resonates with him because it's a good mechanical interpretation of oral storytelling.
Okay.
Now, if you look at the card, and it's very hard to do that on an audio podcast, I'll admit, but the card is essentially in the large throne room or whatever of a castle. There's
Uh-huh.
a crowd around him. They're all lifting drinks. They're all partying, all merry. And there's one bard like character kind of standing amongst all of them, telling a grandiose tale and boasting about it, right?
Okay.
This is what Matt has to say. So the boast ability is familiar to anyone who works with children because you're telling the story again and you're telling it with more bravado and more gusto. When you add a 1/1 counter or adding a 1/1 counter, when you add a lore counter hits home due to how a good story can fuel your soul and hook you in for a ride. So it's giving you a boost. As the story gets better, as you progress through chapters, you're boosting up your own confidence, your own just kind of joy in your own spirits.
Well, that's a very nice thought. I do think that's a great way to look at cards, and seeing the storytelling of the art gives a lot of value to the artist who works really hard on those designs. So that's a really great answer. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I will say, and there's one more bit to it. I will say the other one, which I would not have considered. So, because he comes with Vigilance, Trample, and Lifelink,
Uh-huh.
the other bit that Matt brings up is, if you look at what makes a great story, right? So, a great story rattles around your brain. It's something to keep you up all night thinking about, the next chapter or how it ended, stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
What keeps you up and not tapping in Magic? Vigilance. You know,
Oh.
a good story can kind of like knock you over, double you over with laughter, with joy, like Trample. And a story can heal and kind of replenish your soul and your overall mood and demeanor, like Lifelink.
Wow, this is some serious anthropomorphizing of card features, but I do stand for it. I think that's a good nice take.
I really like that take too, and that was one. Like I said, when I got that response back, I was like, either someone at Wizards really understood the assignment, or Matt is really overanalyzing this, or maybe a little bit of both. But if he's overanalyzing it and it's just a coincidence, I'm all here for the overanalysis.
Agreed. I think it's fun to give that much lore to a card,
Mhm.
especially a card that might not have like as much feasible lore that you're able to find on the
Sure.
internet. So love it.
All right. Now, last but not least, we are going to end this on a bit of a letdown, which is the most dishonorable mention. So, we've done 7 things talking about what's the best commander, what's the greatest commander, the most fun, the most lore driven, the most powerful, who's going to be the most popular with EDH 100. This here is who is the biggest villain, or who is the one you want to steer the clearest of so far this year?
Well, I think that there's easy answers here. Voja Nadu. All right, it's wrapped up. That's the episode, everybody. GG, goodbye. No, I mean not including those guys because we've already spoken about them, and they're special in their own way. I'm going with an Assassin's Creed card. I think that this card's just kind of crazy. It's Socrates, the Athenian teacher. It's a one, a blue, and a white. It's a 0/4 defender. He is hexproof as long as he's untapped, and then he can commence in Socratic dialogue with you and tap and until end of turn, target creature. If this creature would deal combat damage to a player, prevent that damage. This creature's controller and that player each draw half that many cards, rounded down. This just seems like the biggest, like, oh, my Voltron deck is trying to swing in and deal combat damage. Nope. Oh, now he's speaking philosophy with the old heads. So I just find that I typically play a lot of like combat decks, and so I just see this being used against me over and over and over and over again.
It's sort of like anti-goad, like the biggest pillow fort. Like, I'm not telling you you have to pay to attack me in the same
Uh-huh.
sense of, like what propaganda or ghostly prison, but I'm telling you you're gonna pay if you attack me.
It's coming for you eventually, yeah.
Yeah, but what's funny is that one is actually one that I was kind of excited about when I first saw it get spoiled. We'll see. It might still be coming for you, whether you like it or not. We'll see if I end up building it.
Well, what about you, Corey? What is your most dishonorable mention?
Well, I went for one that I think I've been very vocal this year about disliking, and that is Housed Eyes of the Glade. This is the face down morph, mega morph, disguise, whatever commander
Okay.
from the precon of March or Murders at Karlov Manor. So this is the one that's like a hybrid red white with a green. It's a 2/2, whenever a creature you control that was turned face up this turn deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card, and you can tap to turn a target face down attacking creature you control face up. I don't care too much for the commander. Um, I get that it's sort of like if Morph met ninjutsu because you're hoping that they don't block and then you flip it face up and you surprise them and whatever. But I have been so down on this face down like theme of that set that this one just got swept up with the rest of it. I'm not a fan. I think there would be more interesting ways to go about building this kind of deck as far as like dealing with face down that didn't involve adding so many different variations of a card being face down. So I think for me, this one is not a great commander for me, but also is admittedly getting some flack for my distaste for the rest of the set.
Yeah, I mean, I think we also discussed this one on a recent episode, and my stance on it is that I felt similarly. I wasn't, super hyped about it, and I've seen it played, and the guy had a pretty fun time, and I've seen it played more than once to a degree of success. So I don't think it's that dishonorable. It kind of reminds me of like Magic the Gathering. Was this a Magic the Gathering podcast? That's crazy. Yu-Gi-Oh, but with like trap cards, and it's like it keeps you guessing. It keeps you playing a little bit three-card Monty there. It's like a mini game. I think it's innocent fun. Um, it's a card. I'm not disparaging your choice, but I do think don't underestimate it. It can do some surprising things every once in a while.
No, I think that's fair in the same sense that I just said that Socrates was not real low on my list. I think it's fair that this isn't real low on your list.
Fair enough.
Now, and you're going to be shocked by this curveball. So, the person we reached out for most dishonorable mention is our most dishonorable guest. I mean, one of our guests. No, John over at the Chaotic Commander YouTube channel. Been
Okay.
on a couple times.
I've heard of him. Just kidding.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah,
good friend.
vaguely familiar. So he has picked Nadu Winged Wisdom
Oh, for real?
in punchline. Yeah, there was no joke there. That he literally picked Nadu Winged Wisdom, which I mean, fair. I think it's a fair choice.
Yeah, if if you want to hear discussion of Nadu, I'd say rewind the podcast quite a few minutes, and we'll. But I agree with you. He's a horrible bird. He's way too strong. He's under costed for what he does. He's like overpowered in terms of actual power and toughness for his cost. He's a 3/4 for 3. He has flying. He's a bird wizard. Wizards have a lot of synergy, so that's already strong. Any of one of like his ability is basically broken into three different really strong things that could all be once per turn. They're not. They're all twice per turn, and it's per creature. The art is funny. It's just a card. It's a bad card, but it is a card.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't really think I need to expand too much on what you just said there. It exists. I think the problems with the card have been discussed at length, not just with us, but all over the internet. Yeah, this is one of those cards where I don't know if you've seen the recent trend of like Sharpie Cube,
Uh-huh.
where they're sharpieing cards to like make bad cards better by removing restrictions.
Yeah.
This is sort of like if there was a reverse Sharpie Cube where you could Sharpie it to weaken this card down, it would be better.
And you have to Sharpie out quite a few cards before he becomes any sort of
Yeah,
weaker. Like this dude is just strong.
yeah, pretty much. But hey, I think that wraps up discussion here. So there you have it. 8 different categories, 22 commanders, 6 guests, however you want to split it up. There you are, halfway through 2024. Those are our choices for a wide variety of commanders you should check out. I would be very excited to see some builds come out of this. Maybe there's some commanders you haven't given a glance at that now's your opportunity. Or maybe you were about to build a Nadu Wing Wisdom deck and we've steered you away from it.
The world thanks us.
But now we're going to hop into question of the week, card of the week, and then we're going to wrap up today's episode. So, question of the week, Cole. This one comes to us from Rever over at Apple Podcasts, which, by the way, we're on Apple Podcasts if you guys didn't know. Rever asks, which is superior in building a commander for you, flavor or function?
Well, thanks, Rever, for reaching out. We're super, happy to hear from you. I mean, for me personally, I have a good mix. I try to keep a good mix of decks that are flavorful and decks that function, and then decks that are flavorful and function. Honestly, I've dipped all the way into flavor before, and the deck is just it was lackluster, and that might have been my fault. But this was a five-color spirits deck that was only using the like OG Kamigawa spirit block. This is before Neo Kamigawa. Um, and it was a cool deck. It was a aesthetically really beautiful deck, and it was pretty cheap because it was a lot of like it was a spirits and arcane deck, but it basically functioned like a really bad precon. Like the cards all had were on theme, but they just together were not able to assemble a win past somebody like doing a dockside loop or anything to that effect, like any sort of regular commander gameplay. So it was fun, but I kind of lean harder onto function, but keep thoughts of flavor in there. I have a Gandalf deck. You best believe I have as many Lord of the Rings cards as I could afford to put in there, not financially, but functionally.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you. So typically for me, I go with function, like a game mechanic function that I want to do. So is that a creature type I want to promote? Is that spell copying? Is that mill? Like I try and find the play style that I want, and then I will pick a flavorful choice within that play style that's functional. So if I were to say spell slingers, and I've got two equally powerful spell slingers in terms of what's going to get me to the gameplay I want to look at, but
Uh-huh.
one was objectively more flavorful than another one, I'll probably go with the flavor option. So like as an example of that with Bloomborough coming out, so when you look at Is It, there's a ton of Is It Spell Slinger commanders, but are there a ton of Is It Spell Slinger commanders that are also otters? Not really. So I would probably go, hey, look, if they're the same equivalency as far as power level, I'm probably going to lean towards the otters and the flavor, and get the best of both worlds. But for me, the basis of all my decks is on a function standpoint.
I think that's reasonable, and you probably have more fun playing that way unless you're playing in an all or like a flavor, league, or everybody has the most flavorful, deck like that. Then oh man, then you're gonna be having a fun time. But otters are good. I
Mm,
think. Let me know if you end up building that.
yeah. But hey, thank you for your question of the week. If you guys have a question of the week, you can always leave it to us on any of the social medias, if that's Twitter, Instagram, Threads, right here down in the comment section on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any of those places. Go ahead and drop your question of the week. We enjoy reading them. We get to as many of them as we can. We also take the time after all of the episodes drop to kind of answer any comments. So if you guys even want to leave a comment that says, really enjoyed the episode, here's my thoughts on should be what should have been chosen for a specific category. Hey, leave them down there. You'll get a response from us. But thank you very much again, Rever, for leaving that question of the week. Cole, card of the week, or is it?
Yeah. So the card of the week is believe it or not, it's going to be the Throne of Bone. This is a one mana, kind of like a seated skull, like a chair or a couch of sorts, and it has a man Um,
I
Potentially a
thought we were getting back on
Vance.
this
uh,
JD Vance train again.
Contemplating his demons within, the kind of this like spirit that's pouring out of a jar. I think a lot of things that it's a pretty popular meme. This will maybe get dated after a while. People will forget about it, but it's in 2024. We are looking at the next election here, and this is a pretty solid magic political meme at this point. So, Tainted by 1,000 Fears. The card itself is an artifact. It's a 1 mana artifact. Whenever a player plays a black spell, you may pay 1, and if you do, you may gain 1 life. So it's you can tell it's honestly you could gain some good life out of that over the course of a regular commander game. It's probably not the worst card in the world, but it is. Here, let's see how many decks it's in. But it's a couch, and that's the meme,
Hmm.
everybody.
When you said it was a guy sitting in a chair contemplating, I was like, yeah, we've all seen a Loro.
Ooh, that's a good that might be worth tweeting about. That he is kind of a guy in a chair. Um,
Contemplating.
so it's in 391 decks out of I'm looking at I'm doing a quick math problem here.
Now, the
It's
question
pretty
is,
low.
after this episode airs,
Yeah.
do you look back in a couple days and it goes up or it goes down in decks? Because it could either be like a lot of people go, man, I've never heard of this card before. Let's add it to a deck. Or what you've done is you've reminded 381 people that this card was still in their deck and they're like, oh man, I got to cut that sucker right now.
I think people are leaving this in. It's like you said, it's kind of one of those coveted, like it's probably 391 chair themed decks, and I don't think you have that many chairs to mess around with in that sense of.
Start turning your nose up on chair art.
Yeah, yeah. So I do think that it is probably on track to increase from its 0.0000 9% chance of being in a Magic the Gathering deck. So I can only go up from
Hmm.
here.
Well, hey, there you have it. Card of the week. So, thank you for making it to the end of today's episode. If you would like to reach out to Cole, you can find him at loveandmana.mtg over on any of the social media platforms you would like. Primarily, I believe you're on Instagram and Threads. Is that the best place to find you? Threads,
I would say
Twitter,
Twitter.
Instagram?
I am on
Okay.
Threads, but I'm much more active on Instagram and Twitter. But yeah, send me a message.
You
I'd
can
love to
also
say
find
hi.
him at Gary. Was it Gary? Gary's Great Games? Gerald's Great Games?
If you hear this, and you might be able to find me at Gordon's Good Games.
Gordon.
So
I knew it was a G.
don't stock down poor old Gordy here, but see you there.
Okay, but what would happen if you found out that this was Gordon Ramsay they were talking about? At one point, he had a LGS, small LGS in California, and then he hit it big.
And he's like holding two decks to somebody's face. What are you? And, I'm a Timmy sandwich or whatever, like the I'm an idiot
Yeah,
sandwich meme. Like, yeah, I think I would be pretty astounded because he hasn't hinted at it in any of his many shows. But if it does
many,
happen,
many shows. I'm
I'll
sure it does happen.
get you an autograph.
You should. I want him to sign my. What would be a good like Guillaume maybe? Maybe Rocco Cabaretti Caterer.
Yeah, I think honestly, if you could probably bring both those cards. He'd probably be kind enough to sign both of them. I think he's a nicer dude than people kind of give him.
The lit on.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, if you aren't chatting with Cole and Gordon Ramsay, you can find me at Sleevecard at any of those social media addresses as well. Or you can reach out to the podcast directly at UrCastPod or contact.urcast@gmail.com. But thank you for making it to the end of today's episode. Have yourselves a magical Wednesday, and we'll see you again later this week. Man, that sounds weird to have roll off the tongue.
Bye, guys.